Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Happy December. Welcome to our December 2023 Astro-Tarot deep dive. This is our last deep dive of this year. Right before we started recording, Susheela and I were talking about a few things, but mainly how the Venus retrograde in July really split this year in two, and how there's a significant before and after. And of course, we're aware that that was 5 months ago, but one of the things we wanted to touch on before we dive into December is how people may be feeling right now, particularly Susheela and I are recording this on November 29th. We're still very heavily under the influence of the full moon in Gemini that occurred on November 27th. And so you shared some interesting stuff with me about what people kind of reported to you.
Yes. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was this anticipatory feeling. We've been going through a few weeks ago, it was like just dive in, like, you know, from the tarot, it's like the fool card. You take this leap of faith, but you really don't know what you're diving into. Like
Hmm.
that's part of the thing. It's like you dive in not knowing what you're gonna find in there. They dove in and went, I didn't think it was gonna be like this. You know, from that Venus in retrograde in Leo, where we dropped the ego took a
Hmm.
back seat. We got to feel this vulnerability that we hadn't had before. And that was part of the redoing of ourselves, the reconfiguring everything for what's coming up in the Pluto moving into Aquarius for what's going to feel like permanently in
Right.
January. And so this full moon just felt like total chaos for people. Like it was,
Hmm.
their moods were swinging, up and down, and people were very emotional. It felt like a Mercury retrograde.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was unsettling. It was like being exposed and like bearing all of this stuff. And the other feeling was, I likened it to, you've been doing all this work and clearing and purging and clearing out the attic and the basement and went through every single box, and I think I've gotten everything, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, there's the storage unit.
Right.
There's all this other stuff I haven't unpacked, like some other
Right.
baggage. Yeah.
Right. You know, I- it's so important to remember that particularly astrology, it's a study and a practice that can be looked at very linearly, but you have to remember that astrology is something that reflects or highlights what's happening in the collective or what's happening in your individual life, right? So it's something that it's a practice and a study that's not necessarily static, but that
Hmm.
moves. It has to change, it has to move. Because, for instance, what was considered technology even 20 years ago is not new technology now. It's actually quite almost obsolete in many ways.
Yeah.
So astrology has to reflect what we're experiencing at the time. I say this because um, you and I have been talking. I think that your and my approach is a very soul evolutionary approach,
Hmm.
and I think that we try to really ground it with life examples. But you also want to keep in mind, for those of you who follow this type of tarot and astrology, is how you have evolved, how your soul has evolved, how you have grown as a person, how you're seeing things differently. So while the full moon in Gemini for some people may have been unsettling, I think the unsettling of that full moon in Gemini had a lot to do with, I thought I was going to have the answers. I thought that Venus retrograde passed, we're out of eclipse season, and so now things should just be clear, right? Right? And so being mindful that that's not how things work, because that's not how soul growth and evolution work.
Yeah.
We still have to learn to be this new us that has been emerging, right? Um,
And we're tying off all those loose ends because we have been, we had a taste of that Pluto in Aquarius,
mhm,
and it wasn't what we thought it was. And I likened it to, oh, I want to go to this new place, and all I've ever seen are the, glossy travel photos. And I don't
right.
even know anybody who's ever been there, but that's where I'm going to go. And this is how I'm going to dress. And these things I'm going to have, and I'm going to live in such a place. But you really know nothing about it. Then you get a little
Mhm,
taste of it. Somebody went and they took real footage. They didn't take, glossy promo videos. And you're
right.
like, oh, I didn't know they had that, or I didn't know the climate was so diverse, or the terrain was so diverse, or there were bad neighborhoods, or, whatever. And so
Mhm,
now you have to readjust. You have to readjust your mind, how you've configured everything. You have to readjust how you are interacting in that space. You have to configure, oh, this isn't really what I thought. It's not some utopian
right,
concept. It's like it is real and it is gritty. And so that's what we've been experiencing. And there's these final things of like, oh, yeah, that, yeah, the understanding, the supposed understanding that we were going to have with that full moon, I think just feels like there's stuff that is being exposed that we didn't clean up yet.
right,
Like,
right.
ooh,
And that's a different level of understanding. That's a different way of understanding or seeing something that we hadn't seen before. And so, as I was mentioning before, also, is I saw a lot of the interpretations of that full moon in Gemini as being, this is the full moon of your truth. This is the full moon of your understanding. And I I thought that doesn't make a lot of sense, because considering that the ruler of the full moon, which is Mercury, is about to go retrograde in 2 weeks, right? So we're in the pre retrograde shadow of Mercury as well. Why
mhm.
am I sharing this? Because you want to pay attention to what you're reading or consuming about astrology and how that feels to you, right? And so if it a lot of the interpretations were this is the full moon of your truth, this is the full moon of understanding, and most people experience everything but that. One, that's when we get into astrology doesn't work territory, right? But two, don't forget that you are your own sovereign being, right? You are your own oracle. You know what's happening, what's going on with you. So being very, very mindful of that. There are different interpretations of these works. And so, and some are going to get more specific than others. And you want to be mindful of that too. You want to be mindful that we only have a certain amount of time to share these things, that, you know, things like Instagram only have a certain number of characters. You can't go in depth with a lot of things. So just saying that, because as we move into the month of December, we really are moving in with the energy of that full moon in Gemini, which can feel a little chaotic.
Yeah, and all of those things don't happen in a vacuum. We
Right.
have a full moon in Gemini while we have all this other stuff going on. We have a full moon in Gemini in Sagittarius season.
Exactly.
It's a bunch of other things are going on. It's like, yes, 3 inches of snow falls. That's an energetic weather pattern. 3 inches of snow falling in the middle of June is a little bit different than when it happens in mid-January. Like
Right.
there is context to that full moon in Gemini. And
Yeah.
and I think the understanding and all of those things coming through, just like for me, it was the tarot, the tower card in the weekly tarot class.
Mm-hmm.
I had to say tower and tarot together. And it was like running through a video game, like an energetic obstacle course.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I can't even see where I'm going. I thought I was supposed to have clarity.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get out of this? Well, you just have to keep moving and avoid the obstacles, avoid all the curveballs. Just keep going, even if you can't see where that is. And
Right.
that's how the understanding comes to you, is to navigate this like wild terrain that
Right.
you dove into willingly because you felt that there's something to be gained on the other side.
Right. Right.
Like,
Right. Right. So this clarity that we are aiming towards, that we keep, almost desperately looking for. And I mean, I get it. I say that from a place of where I understand, right? We begin the month with on December 1st, Mercury moving into the sign of Capricorn. So Mercury is going to be in the sign of Capricorn for quite some time because it's going to retrograde. Mercury will get to 8 degrees of Capricorn and begin retrograding back. And it will retrograde back into the sign of Sagittarius. And we'll get to that in a second. Mercury in Capricorn by nature is the energy of planning, of, setting intentions or setting goals or resolutions, whatever it is that feels best for you. It is the energy of reading the manual, reading the instructions, getting very clear on things, being very intentional and methodical with whatever it is that we're going to move forward with. So I think that after a full moon in Gemini, at the beginning of that week, at the end of the week, we have on December 1st, Mercury moving into Capricorn. I think the energy settles because Capricorn is also this energy of acceptance of, okay, well, this is what I'm working with. How do I work with what I have? And so I think that in that way is going to be grounding. What you want to be mindful of, just because December tends to be a month where people want to plan what they're going to do for, the following quarter or the following year. We have a Mercury retrograde coming. You will change your mind about things. You will have conversations 2 to 3 times. There are patterns that repeat themselves, which we'll point out. So if you're looking for solid answers, December's not going to be the month. But I think that Mercury in Capricorn, while it's in Capricorn, is going to help you work with what you have.
yeah. And I am using 2 decks here because we have 25 different.
I know.
And I know there's 78 cards in a deck, but I didn't even check to see if we had duplicates. I was like, well, I'll hold off on that. But they're both by the same person. I'm using the Curious Creatures and the Light Seers deck, both by Chris Ann,
Love that.
just because in case the energy duplicates, we'll see. But
Mm-hmm.
interestingly, I got
Oh,
the
funny.
moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the moon is typically ruled by Cancer. That's why there's a little crab here.
Mm-hmm.
The illumination, howling to the moon, this gown that in this deck everybody's got an animal head and a human body. So the wolf howling at the moon kind of thing and being illuminated by the moon. The moon is that card of secrets being revealed or your deeper emotions coming to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part of the opening up of those deeper emotions can feel a little scary, and
Mm-hmm.
to communicate them, and should I communicate them, and I didn't know I had that in me, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all of that. Even communicating to oneself might
Yeah.
feel unsettling or daunting, or we also lie to ourselves. That's the other thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's such a great point, because with Mercury moving back into Sagittarius, I think we'll have the opportunity to see just how much we do that. Because Sagittarius, a very unique expression of Sagittarius is exaggeration, and so we can exaggerate certain things, as
Yeah.
sometimes. So when you go into Capricorn territory, it's very much about getting grounded and real on what's actually, again, what you can actually count on, what's actually there.
Yeah, there might be that feeling of like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Or
Yeah.
believe I told myself that, or did I really believe that? Like that's
Hmm.
crazy. Like,
Hmm.
and then there can be the flip side too of that feeling of that awareness that comes from really being honest with ourselves and exposing certain things where you kind of
Hmm.
like you can kind of dip and feel bad about it that you did this to yourself, like you are the
Hmm.
reason you're going through this, which is good and bad. It's a double-edged sword because at
Right.
least you know it comes down to you, it's not some external force, but at the same
Hmm.
time you're thinking like, I can't believe I did that to myself.
Yep. Another expression of Capricorn energy is responsibility and
Yeah.
self-responsibility. And this is especially true December 2nd, as Mercury, newly entered in Capricorn, creates its first sextile to Saturn in Pisces. So here we have Capricorn energy connecting with its ruler Saturn, but Saturn is in Pisces. So to what Susheela was saying just a few moments ago is, I can't believe I did that, right? So let's say that that is a manifestation for you. You realize what you were doing and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Saturn in Pisces reminds us of compassionate accountability. Have compassion for yourself. Remember, you are learning to be this you that has emerged since the summer and is still emerging and it's still unfolding, and you're learning. And because we bring in the very human component of the holidays. So you might reach out to someone who you didn't want to reach out to, or who you said you weren't going to reach out to, or someone reaches out to you. It's Saturn and Pisces, I think, is really that energy that is reminding us of having grace for being human.
Yeah.
um and grace is what allows us to get to grow, to evolve at a soul level, because if we stay stuck in guilt, then we never move past that.
No, and that was actually I guess a subplot to the tower. It
Mm,
was when this stuff gets uncovered and you have these realizations of like, oh my gosh, it was me doing that. I created my own chaos. Then get into that place of we all do this.
mm-hmm,
It's not I'm being human. Like
mm-hmm.
that person over there doesn't have it more figured out than I do. We're
Right.
all navigating, some new terrain here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got the sun on
Mm.
that day, which is, it's a very interesting progression going from the moon to the sun. We've seen the
Yeah.
star. It's a very nice, comfortable feeling. It's illumination on a much greater level of like, so the moon has that coming out of the shadows, illuminating the parts that are hidden. And then the sun is like, fine. So what?
Right.
I screwed up. Here it is. There we
Right.
go. Well, I'm being human. How wonderful. And it's a
Right.
very positive energy card.
So I want to just name really quickly on a more um, mundane interpretation of this. Mercury and Capricorn sextile Saturn and Pisces is really great energy to, as I said once again, you can plan things, you can begin planning things. So let's say that you have a team, right? A team of people that you work with, or you have a someone that you do one-on-one work, or your partner at home, there are things you want to do. Let's have a to-do list. And the how we cross those things off the to-do list, that set the intention to cross them all off at some point, and whenever that actually happens, we can remain flexible in that, right? There is a very practical approach to this energy, but again, working with what you know you have and not jumping the gun to other conclusions, to things that are probably out of your control. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So on December 3rd, we have Venus in Libra creating a square to Pluto in Capricorn. This is really important because on November 24th, I believe, yeah, November 24th, 25th, Venus came to a conjunction to the South Node in Libra. This is a significant, significant deal because this isn't something that happens all the time. The last time that Venus came to conjunction to the South Node in Libra specifically was in 2005.
Mm.
So this doesn't happen all the time. Venus coming together to the South Node. The South Node tends to represent leaving something behind and ending. It tends to represent a turning point of a before and after. And with Venus and Libra involved, Venus in its home sign of relationship, of wanting to keep things at an even keel at all costs, that is such a significant turning point that something may not have happened to you that week of like 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th of November, but it did mark an energetic shift in the way that you relate to others and to yourself. And you're going to have to let it see. You're going to have to let it unfold.
Mm-hmm.
December 3rd, where Venus in Libra coming out of that conjunction of to the South Node is squaring Pluto in Capricorn. Let's say that you have a friendship during the Venus South Node conjunction, you realize, I don't think that's a very good friend, but I don't know how to end the friendship. This square and the following days, probably the following week, can give you the opportunity, probably not in the most pleasant way, to say, this is why.
Mm-hmm.
So be very mindful of that.
Well, I love the way these cards line up because, as you know, if anybody's been watching us for any length of time, we don't plan this. We don't talk about the card. We don't talk about Fight Club. And so I've got the Eight of Cups, which is walking away from something
Wow.
that you previously put a lot of effort into.
Mm.
Cups are emotional things. They're things that deal with the heart, things that nurture us, feed our soul, all that kind of stuff. And it may be just a state of mind. You may have already walked away from this.
Mm-hmm.
But something shifts in your mind of like, oh yeah, I'm done, done,
Mm-hmm.
done.
Right.
It's like, it's that where the feeling is absolutely definitive.
Mm-hmm.
Walking away and not looking back no matter what, because as I keep saying, and we've been saying for a while, when we enter this new era, we are not bringing the old stuff with us. We don't want to bring the old stuff with us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the old stuff with this much Venusian energy, the second half of the year, has so much to do with relationships. So much. So December 4th, we have that same Venus enter the sign of Scorpio and remain there till December 29th. So for those of you who are, astrology nerds, love astrology, love studying astrology, you want to pay attention to what a planet does when it's leaving one sign and entering another. So on December 4th, Venus enters Scorpio. What did Venus do right before entering Scorpio? It had a square to Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto rules Scorpio. Why is that important? Because Venus leaving Libra at a square to Pluto will bring something up. Will bring something up around relationship. It's a hard truth, perhaps a hard conversation. With Venus in Scorpio from December 4th to December 29th, we are in true Scorpio fashion, either really processing in a deep way, letting it go, right? Going through that bit of a death in a potential relationship, or getting ready to actually do that between the time of Venus and Scorpio. Venus and Scorpio will give us the energy to mourn a little bit, and it's going to have some favorable aspects as the month moves forward, but the fact that it enters Scorpio a day after it has that square to Pluto is not an accident. And Venus in Scorpio can be seen as being in detriment. At least that's what it's called in traditional astrology. I don't know. I think that it'll gift us with what it needs to gift us in that moment in the sign of Scorpio.
Mhm. Well, I have an interesting card for that. I have Temperance.
Mm-hmm.
And I always refer to this, well, I shouldn't say always, but for the last year, I have been referring to this card as bringing things back into balance. So when
Mm-hmm.
you think about us walking away
Mm-hmm.
from something, it's like imagine yourself finally getting rid of a burden, an
Mm-hmm.
energetic burden, a mental burden, psychological burden, weight, guilt, whatever, in a relationship, in some context with people that you're interacting with. It could be workplace stuff, family stuff, intimate relationships, but something in there that you let go of. It can even
Mm-hmm.
just be you're letting go of, negative thoughts about yourself,
Right.
your lack of self-worth, or something that you finally get rid of and let go of, so that you are now interacting with people differently, or there's different people you're interacting with, but it's bringing things back
Mm-hmm.
into balance in like this healthy growth kind of way, although
Mm-hmm.
it still might feel uncomfortable at the time, because
Mm-hmm.
bringing it back into balance, it's not like, oh, magic wand, there you go.
Right.
It's that process of like, whoo, like, how do I settle this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
first learning to ride a bicycle, or sitting on a seesaw with somebody who just hops off the other side. Like,
Right.
ooh, how do I bring this back into balance?
Mm-hmm.
That is the energy. It's to know that you can bring it back into balance and steady yourself again. And as soon as something is removed from your life, you have to like get your footing again. Like, how do you do that? Like, everybody runs to one side of the boat. Well, like, you know, if you've
Right.
ever tried to get into a canoe from a dock all on your own, it's like it's great once you're in or when you're out, but it's the getting in or out part that's the tippiest. There's a
Right.
there's a word I invented, the tippiest.
Well, the energy of Scorpio is the energy in the zodiac that definitely doesn't allow you to lie to yourself.
Mhm,
Um, Scorpio is that depth psychologist, that detective type of energy.
mhm,
It'll really dig for the truth, right? So it's about finding balance from a much more honest space. So on December 5th, we have Venus in Scorpio create a trine to Saturn in Pisces. On the one hand, this is great energy to have conversations about money, actually. Now, you can have the conversations, you want to be mindful of anything that you're agreeing to, anything you're signing. But Venus in Scorpio trans Saturn in Pisces, it is this energy of commitment, of understanding what you're committing to, of saying, okay, I'm going to go ask the bank about this loan. I'm going to ask all of the details, what the interest is, can I pay it ahead of time without any penalty? But knowing that trine between Venus and Saturn, I know that I can pay it back comfortably. So
mhm,
it is again a very realistic energy, But because of Pisces, I feel it has this energy of allowing you to commit to something that's beneficial for the future,
Hmm.
even if you're not committing to it right away.
Hmm. We have one of the knights here, the Knight of
Mm,
Cups, and it's usually about
interesting.
romantic offerings. But
Love that.
I'm happy you said the word commitment because
Hmm.
it's an offer
Hmm.
of something that can appeal to your emotions, can appeal to your heart. And so you may commit to that because of those perceptions. You
Hmm.
know, reading something without the logic, going like, oh,
Hmm.
so nice. They're so nice. What a nice offer. And then you forget to read the fine print.
Right.
It's not that it doesn't have an energy of maliciousness or
Mm-mm.
somebody trying to trick you or anything like that. It's that we might get caught up in our emotions and not pay attention, get caught up
Right.
in the romance of the whatever, of a new
Yes.
mortgage, you know, with the house, but it's 50,000 more than what I really should be looking at. That
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, that's a lot of water there, right? Scorpio and Pisces. There can be a tendency for a lot of romance there. Venus and Scorpio can be a little bit possessive and no, this is what I want, um, for the sake of wanting it and not thinking beyond that.
Yeah, Pisces and Scorpio has that, uh, very passionate, throw caution to the wind kind of
Hmm.
vibe about it. It can be really exciting
Hmm.
and it can be loving and nurturing and comforting. But in certain moments, it's like you can get swept away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that Saturn there is a nice grounding energy. It's a nice like adult energy. It's like, the teenagers have a chaperone.
Yes.
So
Am I too old to have a chaperone? I think I'm too much. Probably my spirit guides going, excuse me. Like, so I don't know what the heck that is. I keep feeling.
right. On December 6th, Neptune goes direct in Pisces. So Neptune has been retrograde in Pisces since June 30th. Neptune retrogrades are very like like beneath the surface in the background. You don't really feel that energy moving forward or direct until like hindsight, right? Oh, that's when that happened. So Neptune in Pisces retrograde has represented so much. And I really invite you to think about how much you really needed to lean into your connection to spirit, to the universe, to something greater than yourself, especially after the summer that we had with that Venus retrograde and everything that happened in between. Neptune retrograde in Pisces Neptune retrograde, but especially in Pisces, has tended to represent a time of disillusion, a time of like you're disappointed or disillusioned that something wasn't what you thought it was or what it was going to be. And the Neptune direct is okay, good. Good. I'm glad you were disappointed by that because now it's much more honest. And now the way that you get to move forward with spirit, with the universe, with that energy that is indicative of something greater than just the human self gets to be from a much more honest place and not from this like hopeful rose-colored glasses space, which Neptune and Pisces lower expression can be.
Mm-hmm. So we have another interesting card here. We have the Hermit. So
Mm.
that's like three cards so far out of six that talk about illumination.
Mhm.
And typically it's a card for Virgo, but Virgo's the opposite of Pisces. So there's a lot of that, the shadow part of Pisces in there. It's a number 9. It's a major arcana. So we've had, again, 3 majors out of 6 cards. So this is a heavy month. This is like a
Yeah.
lot of big soul stuff happening. And it gives me the feeling of like, can I come out now? Can I come out? Is it safe to come out? Have I done
Yeah.
enough of the internal work? And like you say, in hindsight, we realize a lot of things with this. So I think once we begin to emerge, we realize that we really did go deep enough. We really did clear a lot more than we thought we did. We were so bogged down at the time of going through all the emotional turmoil, it felt like. As you emerge, you're actually like, huh, I did it. I did it. I
Yeah.
actually did it. So it's like the wise person on the hill, the wise
Mm,
wizard on the hill. You come out, you went internally and had realizations, and many of them weren't pretty. And then you emerge and go like, I'm actually okay. I can do this.
yeah. Yeah. Um, December 7th, we have Mercury and Capricorn trine Jupiter retrograde in Taurus. So, once again, this can represent a conversation about the future, a conversation of commitment, potentially of hard work, of setting new intentions or new goals, but about the future. One, again, Mercury is going to retrograde, and Jupiter is still retrograde in Taurus. So one of the things you'll want to pay attention to is that Jupiter retrograde in Taurus has represented a period of time where it may have been difficult to manifest like physical tangible things. So it's a great time. It may have been a great time for investment, but you're not going to see the return on your investment immediately, right? So this Mercury and Capricorn trine Jupiter retrograde in Taurus is more about let's talk about this. Let's talk numbers. This is like a numbers conversation. Again, a commitment. Um this is it feels a little bit of like betting on yourself, but not gambling. It feels
Mhm.
again like I'll go back to the example of the loan, right? Well, if I get this loan out, it'll help me with, get to this next step, but I feel very comfortable that I can pay it back kind of thing.
Yeah. We have another major and another magic
Mm,
number, 3. So we went from a 9 to a 3. It's the Empress. This is the divine feminine energy. It's about
mm,
creation, gestation, receptivity, um, being more passive instead of active, like the spirit of allowing, watching things unfold, allowing things to take time to grow and nurture them. It's a very positive energy, very, very
mhm,
positive, but more comfortable. Like, so when we come from the hermit into this, it's like there's a level of confidence here that you may not have felt before. You might even find it hard to pinpoint.
mhm,
You know, sometimes like if you're learning something new, you feel like you don't know anything. The more you know, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much to know. I don't know anything. And then
mhm,
somebody might ask you, well, what are you studying in school? And you say, well, I'm taking this crazy course in, microbiology or something. And they might say, well, what's that about? What did you do this with? Then you begin to tell them. And you're like, well, I actually know something. I do actually know things.
Right, right.
And it's that, again, instead of, we've been chasing something, chasing something,
Mhm.
chasing something. This is like, allow the stuff to flow through you because you actually have done so much.
Yeah. 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 Really honoring that earth energy is about allowing your manifestations to come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's
Uh,
earthy. I mean, the
mm,
Empress is earthy, connected to literally the earth, the planet Earth.
I love that. I didn't know that. Uh, December 9th, we have Venus in Scorpio in opposition to Jupiter retrograde in Taurus. So any connection to Venus and Jupiter can tend to be an energy of overindulgence, a bit of laziness, for lack of a better term, or a lack of motivation.
Mhm.
So, you know, the day, the previous days, we have this Mercury and Capricorn connection to Taurus energy, and then we have this Venus in opposition to Jupiter. This, I think that this energy allows us to focus on what really matters, right? And so this energy, yes, it's on December 9th, but I think we'll feel it for a few days. So being mindful of not overloading yourself with things that you don't have to do. So perhaps delegating,
Mhm.
or things, not committing yourself to things you don't want to do, so that you are able to meet the responsibilities that are actually yours. And also being so mindful, very mindful of the money that you spend, of not getting too excited and just swiping the credit card. Again, that
It's
overindulgent energy.
the time of the year. And I was
Yeah.
chuckling while you were talking because you can't see the card that I have in front of me. The card, if anybody wants to take a guess who's watching, the card of over indulging, overburdening, too much, can't say no, I'm in over my head, the 10 of
Mhm.
wands.
Oh wow! Look at even the this is yeah,
It is.
yeah.
It's too much.
Hmm.
One wand too many. Nines are the end, and tens
Hmm.
are the next step where you have to put it down before
Hmm.
you can move forward. So again, that can
Hmm.
be old patterns too.
Hmm.
Like, why did I do this again? And it's that
Hmm.
season too, where people have a tendency to spend too much, eat too much. Like, and last time you said, no, I'm not going to do that again.
Right.
I'm not going to get caught up in the
Right.
consumerism or the sugar or the whatever it is.
Yeah.
And there it is. It's like, yeah, that's one more lesson that, did we learn it?
I think it's worth mentioning that because Venus is in Scorpio, um, and no offense to anyone with any Scorpio placements or Venus in Scorpio, but the opposition to Jupiter. Be mindful of drama, chaos, if you're seeking it, if you're getting involved in it. um, just don't. Right? Or do whatever you want. Just know that there is a tendency for that. Because we have two fixed signs. We have Scorpio, we have Taurus. There can be this tendency of control, a little bit of manipulation there. And that's just the lower expression of that particular energy.
I can just see everybody going for family holidays, what a nice t-shirt that says Venus and Scorpio, just don't.
Just don't. Right.
Venus and Scorpio, just don't.
Just don't. All right. Um, December 11th, Mercury in Capricorn, sextile Venus in Scorpio. So I think that considering everything we mentioned with Venus and Scorpio opposite Jupiter and Taurus, this can be energy that lifts you up. So on the one hand, if you were feeling, just not up for it, a little lethargic, Mercury and Capricorn can get you in that mindset of, okay, I gotta get to the to-do list. I have to do the things that I have to get done. If you splurge and you swipe the credit card on December 11th with Mercury and Capricorn connecting to Venus and Scorpio, you can say, I can't believe I did that. I should have not done that. This can also be energy of potentially regretting what you say, taking responsibility for what you've said. So Mercury in Capricorn sextile Venus in Scorpio is actually really great communication energy. It's clear. Again, another aspect of good money conversations. if you don't have to, not committing to anything yet, but having very clear conversations. So
Mhm.
there's a lot there.
We have a very cute card here, little hummingbird head, and it's a page of swords. So pages are all messengers. They're always about communication.
Hmm.
Um, they are people, but they're typically young people. So it's being in the younger part of your energy. It's a sword card, so it's about thinking and speaking.
Hmm.
And sometimes it can be things like receiving downloads or spirit guides talking to you or channeling or learning, but it is really a card of communication and writing things down, and maybe
Hmm.
just you're writing your intentions down, or you're starting a journal, or you particularly clear about what your dreams were, or it's just a to-do list or something. um, Communication wise, it doesn't necessarily have to be to anybody else but yourself in
Hmm.
this case, but it's a very pleasant card, and it's in the more useful energy in the tarot.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. On December 12th, we have the new moon in Sagittarius at 20 degrees Sagittarius. So the new moon in Sagittarius um, will have Mars pretty close to it. I think Mars won't be too far from that conjunction. If I'm yeah, I'm remembering that the chart of that new moon. It's not a bad new moon per se, but there can be this tendency to want to jump the gun. Like, let's start now. Let's do this now. A little impulsive. A, a new moon in Sagittarius is always going to invite us to set intentions, to dream big, to imagine the best case scenario, to truly be optimistic about the outcome of this intention. But Mercury goes retrograde the next day. So with Mercury in Capricorn, great. Remember, so far throughout the month, we've been saying it's okay to plan, it's okay to initial planning, having those conversations with the new moon in Sagittarius. Okay, we've had enough conversations. How big can this actually be? Or how far do we want to take it? So it's creating a vision. I think it's a great energy for creating a vision, but remaining very flexible in the approach because of the Mercury retrograde that will start soon after.
So this is a card of planning to plan.
Mm,
I'm happy you mentioned the planning, because
mm-hmm,
really it is, the wands are about inspiration and that creative mental energy. So it's not analytical, but it's creative, but it comes from that thought place, specifically how we tie our passions into something tangible.
yeah.
And so wands are the tool that we manifest with,
Mm-hmm,
like a magic wand. And when you have
mm,
two of them, it's it's often depicting where I am and where I want to be. But I might not know how to get there. And so it's very interesting that this falls on the day before Mercury retrograde and at this
mm-hmm.
time of year. Thank goodness, because there's probably nothing you could do anyway. So you might as
Right.
well sit back for 3 weeks and
Mm-hmm,
plan,
mm-hmm.
dream, create some big crazy goals, and then trying to, figure out how you could actually do them.
Right,
That
right.
that's what this is. Like, well, what if I really could do that wild dream of mine? How would I go about it? Who do I have to talk to?
Yeah.
What course of study do I need to take? How much money
Mm-hmm.
should I have? Like, it's a pre-planning plan.
Yep. Yeah. That's such a great card for that. I love that. So, as we mentioned, the next day on December 13th, Mercury goes retrograde and remains retrograde till January 1st. So Mercury starts its retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. Okay, so we have this new moon in Sagittarius with the best possible outcome. Let's envision, let's be optimistic, let's dream big. Okay. Mercury and Capricorn, all right. It's not saying you can't, it's just saying, what do you need to do to actually do that, right? I mean, it can't get much clearer than that. Capricorn is about covering your bases. It's about the mastering of something. It's about understanding the responsibility that comes with something and being willing to ask yourself, am I willing to take on that responsibility? Does it require that I master something, whether it's my time, whether it's a skill, whatever it is? What is this going to actually require of me? And can I realistically commit to that? That's really significant.
Then we have another page. This is childlike energy here. It can be emotionally immature. Also, it could also be playful. We can be too caught up in all the reasons why this can't work. Well, I would need that much money and I need that much thing, and they don't do that if you don't do this, and so can't. What
Mhm.
this page of cups allows you to do is go, well, if there was a way, what would that look like?
Mhm. Mhm.
It allows you to suspend disbelief enough to imagine, and then we have enough planning energy around us that
Mhm.
we can actually not get caught up in the fantasy of this card, because
Mhm.
all of these things, like we said before, don't just operate in a vacuum. They're all connected. We don't just have one energy one day and it disappears and we don't have it again.
Right.
It is okay, it's Mercury retrograde, so chances are logistical things get glitchy, and it's that time of the year where everything is a bit chaotic.
Mhm.
So, so play, like allow your mind to play with it, and just, you know, go back to that place before you got cynical, where everything didn't work, where
Mhm.
everything's screwed up. When you're a kid and you think like adulthood must be fantastic.
Right.
Adults are going, no, you're not allowed to do anything, and all you want to do is nap, and everything results in a bill. Wish I was a kid. And kids are like, yeah, but you get to do whatever you want. Yeah, aside from like eating cookies before dinner and going to
Right.
bed whenever you want, pretty much you're so it's like remembering that the good parts of the childlike aspect. It's not about being immature in your decisions and everything else, but remembering enough of it that you can create something,
Mhm.
still tempered with the planning, the pre-planning.
Mhm. Mhm. So this becomes even more important, that pre-planning, that grounding, that bringing that vision down, because on December 16th the sun in Sagittarius creates a square to Neptune in Pisces. So this Sagittarius Pisces square energy will be repeated about two more times with the Mercury retrograde, and so I'll get to that. But any square to Neptune in Pisces is missing information, the inability to see the whole picture, lacking clarity. It's a square is an aspect of tension that is meant to make you pause and reassess. It's kind of meant to make you change, maybe not completely change directions, but really make you question the approach of the direction that you're going in. I think that's a better way of putting it. So again, the sun in Sagittarius, new moon in Sagittarius, I'm dreaming big, I want all the things. And let's say that you ignore, Mercury going retrograde in Capricorn. It'll work itself out. I'm going to apply for, I don't know, a really big loan. It's just, it can be very rose colored glasses, really big, no boundaries. Sagittarius is a sign, it's ruled by Jupiter. It's more, 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 no boundaries. Neptune in Pisces is boundless energy. There's no Saturn energy involved there. And Mercury in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, is retrograde. So again, just a more simple interpretation of this. If you're shopping, like for holiday stuff, be very mindful of how much you're spending, for instance, right? So it's a bit of an exaggerated type of energy.
Yeah.
Higher expression, great for creativity. Great for creativity. Great for envisioning meditations, for instance. Yeah.
Well, again, this is a very interesting card. We have the Ace of Swords. So remember, our little hummingbird lady was
Mm-hmm.
the Page of Swords, and then we had
Mm.
and whatever. So aces are the beginning of something. It's the beginning of communication, the beginning of mental clarity. It's the desire for mental clarity. Swords are sharp and they're pointed and they're directed and they're precise if you know how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first opportunity where you can now practice that mental clarity doesn't just come out of nowhere. We have to hone the skills that create mental clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I love hummingbirds. They're my favorite little thing. And they're little warriors. They're little zippy, little territorial little guys. And so and they move really quickly and they can move like nothing else. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they hover and, you know, you can hear their wings in a funny, you know, they sound more like bees than birds.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a unique quality to this. Again, initiating something. If you throw yourself into chaos, what are you going to get? Chaos. You
Mm-hmm.
can't throw yourself into chaos and expect mental clarity. Like
Right.
so you go in thinking, okay, I'm going to be very practical here. I'm going to focus and I'm going to think and I'm going to remove all the distractions. And you know, even with your point of shopping and overspending, it's like think like buying this? Is it better to give somebody something for this purpose instead of that purpose? Or
Mm-hmm.
it's obtaining mental clarity, but it takes effort. It comes from within. It's not something we shouldn't expect to come from the outside of just like,
Right.
oh, mental clarity has landed in my lap. Like
Right.
it's not what's going to happen at all. It's us that have to direct this energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Uh, 2 days later, on December 18th, we now have Mercury retrograde in Capricorn create a trine to Jupiter retrograde in Taurus. So remember, on December 7th, we had that first trine, except between Mercury and Jupiter, except that Mercury was direct at the time. This is the second time that this is happening, and Mercury is now retrograde. So let's say that you go back to those first few days, that first week of December, and you were having certain conversations about what you're planning, what you're setting the intention. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to move in together. This is where we want to move in together, right? This on December 18th, Mercury now retrograde is a coming back to reconsider, to checking the details. Um, Again, going back to that example of the potential loan, the bank comes back. Well, we might need these documents, or we need, this other proof of income, or can you get a co-signer? So, because both now Mercury and Jupiter are retrograde, it's not a definite no, but it's just let's just get a little bit more clear. So, think about these previous days that we have been explaining. Don't jump the gun. Wait for clarity. And now we have this connection here. If we move with patience, rather than just impulsively jumping the gun, I think we can actually just tread this month really well and lightly. Um, but you have to be really grounded. And I think what's going to help you do that is what's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
How much money do I actually have to spend? If I'm in a budget, I'm going to stick to that budget. Yeah. Having healthy boundaries, especially with that earth energy, is going to be really helpful.
Yeah, and so I think the progression here, looking at the cards, is pay attention to the warning signs. You have the choice, you have the option to do things differently in the way that you really want so that you can prove to yourself you've learned the lessons. And we end up with the Six of Wands here, which is a card of victory. Typically means victory, and it's not a huge victory. It's just it can be recognition or appreciation. And I think this is for ourselves of like, look at, I did that and I managed to get these really cool things
Hmm.
for less money, or I found something because I put myself on a budget. I did something really unique instead.
Hmm.
Or it's like a feeling of being proud of yourself or having passed a test, even if it's like an internal test or a test from the universe or whatever. You've done something, if you've been paying attention all this time, that you made the right choices, and then you come through and you can say, oh, yeah, I actually did that. Isn't that great? Or somebody else acknowledges you for the stuff you've done. And it doesn't mean that you've done like, something phenomenal that's like noteworthy, like publicly, or, some huge act of philanthropy or anything like that. It's just
Hmm.
this acknowledgement and recognition and a feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I can see that with that much earth energy. Okay, so a few days later, on December 21st, we have the beginning of Capricorn season. So it is the winter solstice. Um, the winter solstice begins with a moon in Scorpio in opposition to Uranus and Taurus, and with a Mercury retrograde in Capricorn sextile Saturn in Pisces. Um, a few things here. The winter solstice and all of the aspects around it on the day of kind of mark or set the tone for the following 3 months until we have the spring equinox in March. Okay. So the fact that this winter solstice is met with a Venus in opposition to Uranus, I think one, there is this element of expecting surprises,
Mm.
allowing yourself to be surprised, allowing things to potentially end abruptly over the next 3 months, um, or willing to step out of your comfort zone in some way that will inevitably end other things in your life, right? And so I want to be mindful when I use the word ending, because people think of it as like this really big bad thing, and it's like, no, maybe you just are going to work differently. So the way that your routine used to run ends so that another routine can begin, right? So endings in various ways. Mercury retrograde in Capricorn sextile Saturn in Pisces. This happened once before on December 2nd. Again, on December 2nd, Mercury was direct. This time around, Mercury is retrograde. It's about, again, what conversations are we having? What are we committing to? Even if it's not conversations with others, what conversations are we having with ourselves? What are we willing to cut off or end in order to commit to something to with ourselves? And the winter solstice again marks a time of 3 months where all of this will unfold.
Hmm. Well, I've got three very interesting cards. I've switched decks here. So we've got the Chariot in the middle, we have the Five of Pentacles, and the Ten of Swords. So talk about endings.
Mm-hmm.
Even the colors don't even go together at all. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit of gold here tying in with that, with this bright, pinks and purples in the Chariot card. So I'm just going to keep those down because it's too many to hold. But those endings, we've wanted endings. We wanted things to end. We want to enter into a new space. And there's a little bit of this tug of war or this victimy feeling of like, but I don't want to let it go because I want all the things, but I don't want to.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
it's knowing that a cycle, we can say a cycle has ended
mhm,
or a cycle is ending, and you can sit in that void for a little bit to allow the universe to fill it. The Chariot card is about things like, gosh, it can be just about anything, but it's like divine timing, and it's the balance of dark and light, masculine and feminine,
mhm,
fast or slow, action and receptivity. And it's also about navigating and not being in the driver's seat. So you
mhm,
navigate, but you are letting the universe take you there. So
mhm.
you can't speed it up, you can't slow it down. All you can do is like hold on to the steering wheel or the reins in this case to watch out for the little bumps and the dips and the,
Mhm.
and so this balance of, let me look at the five. She's sitting there crying, she's all dressed up, and there's a key that can let her in the door, but she's just focused on that. Yeah, okay, no, not again. And then this is like, oh, all of these emotional burdens, they're ending.
Mm,
I want them to end, but wow, I had them for so long. I'm going to miss them.
mhm.
I can't be this, whiny baby anymore. And so
Yeah.
and we don't want to be the whiny baby anymore. And so the Chariot is also about things like cycles and soulmate cycles and divine timing in just about everything we do. So when we just like let go of stuff, create that void, the universe fills it.
Yep.
And it's all happening all on one day, one moment, but it lasts. I mean, as you said, it's an energy that's going to carry over for a few months.
Right. Right. So the following day, on December 22nd, we have the midway point of the Mercury retrograde. And that is the Sun Mercury conjunction in Capricorn at 0 degrees Capricorn. This is a big deal because, so think about what we just said, right? The winter solstice happens at 0 degrees Capricorn when the sun enters the sign of Capricorn. The following day, we have um, a Sun Mercury conjunction while Mercury is retrograde. When this happens, it is a point of clarity. It is a point of, so far during the retrograde, these are the conversations we've had. We haven't landed on anything yet, but we're getting closer. We're tidying things up. This can be a moment of saying, oh, okay, this is how we're going to move forward. And, we keep planning to move things forward later on in January. The fact that it's at 0 degrees Capricorn really marks a new beginning. And I think because it's in Capricorn has to do with a commitment, again, something that's going to ask for a different level of responsibility, something that is going to feel a little bit more mature, a little bit more grown up than things have in the recent past. I think it's this energy that we may have been looking for um, earlier months of clarity and maturity. And I think what we're looking for is to finally commit to something, and we just want to do it, right? And so this is actually going to be an interesting couple of days in terms of the shift in energy.
Yeah. So we had that Ace of Swords, we have the Page of Swords, we have the Two of Swords. This is a bit of a progression, even though there were other things in between and it was a different deck. The Two of Swords is bringing us to that mental clarity where you may oscillate a bit between
Mhm.
the head and the heart. And you can see the birds represent communication and thoughts and things. She's got that blindfold on, but it's not really held on by anything. The birds are trying to pull it off her. Come on,
Mhm.
I'll help you see. I'll help you see. And she's like, I
Mhm.
can't see anything. Ah. it is that, like, a lot of people have that issue, or that, I don't want to say problem, but the confusion between, like, is this my intellect? Is this how I feel? Is what I feel correct?
Hmm.
Am I using my intuition? Is this my intuition?
Right.
Is this my fear? It's that kind of feeling that brings you to mental clarity. When you learn how to trust or interpret, this is a feeling. This is not a thought. This is my
Hmm.
intuition. It's neither my thought nor my feelings. When you
Hmm.
get into that space, that's what this card represents, of
Yeah.
unraveling that and pulling apart all of that, all of the blocks around that, so you can have mental clarity.
Right. 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 I like that. Um, December 24th, we have the Sun in Capricorn sextile Saturn in Pisces. So again, we're getting a little clearer. We're getting a little, we're getting answers. The bank is saying yes. The landlord at the apartment is saying, okay, this is, this is what we can do. You're getting a little bit more comfortable with the unknown. You're getting a little bit more confident in yourself. Sun in Capricorn represents the commitment to self. Saturn in Pisces represents the commitment to spirit. Okay. So this is a very beautiful combination of energy to commit to something, especially because even though we're not technically out of the retrograde period, we're past that midway point. We're past that midway point. And Sun Saturn connections, especially sextiles, are truly, if it's meant to be, it'll be easeful. If it's not meant to be, and there's a lot of like back and forth, there's a lot of things that are kind of in the way, pay attention to that as well, because that's also useful information to you. It Whatever it is that you're moving forward with right now should not feel forced.
Hmm. Hey, hold on to your seats for this one. It's the Tower,
Oh wow.
which, it's not always bad. Like, I've said this a million times, not to freak out on Christmas Eve that, your Christmas miracle is going to be a lightning bolt, but it can feel like that.
Yeah.
It can feel like that when there's too much frustration and things impeding your, you know, wild dream. Sometimes something just comes along and goes, okay, I'll make it really easy for you. There, the
Mm-hmm.
slate has been cleaned. Go ahead. And you go,
Yeah.
them all of my, yeah, never mind. It's all gone now. Go. The path has been cleared. It can
Hmm.
be a surprise, it can be inspiration, but pretty much the playing field has been leveled.
Hmm.
So it may feel like part of it is catastrophic, but it's great. Just go, okay, oh, thank you for the lightning bolt. Now I can, put up my new whatever in its place.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. On December 25th, for those who celebrate Christmas, Venus in Scorpio is trine Neptune in Pisces. This can be a rather emotional day. That's a lot of water. Venus and Neptune combinations are very feely, can be very romantic, um, can be very sweet. This is a lot of emotion. It's actually not bad, heavy energy for, Christmas Eve and Christmas. Um, who knows? It can be one of those things where Neptune's involved, there can be a lot of, substances, alcohol, right? And all of a sudden someone starts pouring their heart out and it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, right? But I really love you. So it's a little bit of that. Other than that, I think it's really sweet energy. I think it's genuine energy.
Hmm.
Lots of emotion, lots of water.
So I have the 9 of Pentacles for that, and it's
Interesting.
about abundance. It's really
Mm-hmm.
about abundance. It can be a more solitary card, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like going into a situation knowing that you can stand on your own 2 feet. You've been through stuff now. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need to, you can go in and put a smile on your face and watch the people having a drama over there and have it not affect you and sit in your flow of abundance. Like this is a very positive card. It's um yes, on a materialistic side, it can be receiving a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
it's also a card about gratitude. So I think if you focus on those things and realizing of all, all the things that you have, um, the abundance that you participate in,
Mm-hmm.
it's more abundance. Basically, it's a very happy. I don't know if we can get her expression there. She's like, she's very pleased. Everything is under control. Like
Yeah.
being controlling, it's not a controlling card, but it
Mm-hmm.
is like the maximum that you can achieve. So it is very positive. I mean, the 10 of Pentacles is even more, we're talking legacy money, but the 9 means like growth and abundance and
Mm-hmm.
kind of an endless supply. Like if you tune into that, you should be able to really have that on that day.
Yeah. 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 So on that theme of water and emotion, on December 26th, we have the full moon in Cancer. So, I, we have the full moon in Cancer. We have a trine between Venus and Scorpio and Neptune and Pisces. That's a lot of water energy. I think that this is just going to find people feeling connected to a lot more to their intuition. I think perhaps a little bit softer when communicating with others. A full moon in Cancer tends to illuminate that which feels like home now and that which doesn't feel like home anymore, right? And that definition of home expands to different things, to something that felt comfortable and safe before, someone that felt comfortable and safe before that doesn't anymore. The energy doesn't strike me as ending as much as an emotional illumination, an emotional culmination of the same.
Well, this is one of those cards that we have a double of. We have temperance again,
Oh wow.
angelic energy back there, balancing the dark and the light, the
Hmm.
moon and the sun, all of that stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's like what I mentioned before of I guess transmuting that energy to bring things back into balance. This
Hmm.
very harmonious energy. Um, there's something kind of otherworldly about it. Like as you go through this month, I think we're tapping into things that are a little bit beyond us, which is a
Hmm.
good thing, to
Hmm.
sort of pull us out of the um the negativity into
Hmm.
something of a higher vibration. This angelic
Hmm.
energy is very potent.
Yeah. 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 That's a great card for that full moon in Cancer. On December 27th, we have Mercury retrograde, now back into the sign of Sagittarius, conjunct Mars, squared Neptune in Pisces. That is a day, a few days before, and a few days after. That is energy you really want to be mindful of, because anytime you have a connection, especially a conjunction with Mercury and Mars, it's no filter. You put your foot in your mouth, you it just comes out. You can't help what you're saying, right? And the sign of Sagittarius, even more so. I want people to hear my truth, and this is what I think, and this is my opinion. And but the square to Neptune and Pisces again tells us you either don't have all of the information, or you are misinformed, or um, you're refusing to see a different perspective. Um, I think it can be an energy. I don't know, for some reason I'm imagining like a drunk when
Mhm.
they're really drunk and they're trying to walk a straight line, but they can't see clearly. That's what that energy is. And so we had something like this of Mercury and Sagittarius come together with Mars, square Neptune and Pisces, the week of November 26th. So the week that we're experiencing right now, the week of that full moon in Gemini, where you were supposed to have all these answers. Be mindful of that. Be mindful of that. Things, yes, things are getting clear. Things are, you're beginning to move forward. But when it comes to that day in particular, whatever it is that you need to do, try to do the day before, try to do it the day after. Really hold off on things, because there's this element of like exaggeration. I don't know.
Mm.
I can't fully pinpoint it.
Do you want to mention the sun in
Oh,
Capricorn
right.
trine in the same day?
So the sun in Capricorn trine Jupiter retrograde in Taurus is really great grounding energy, because I think this is what's going to remind you of what you have been either working towards the whole month. Is going to help remind you and ground you of, no, this is what I've been thinking about, this is what I committed to. So it's nice balancing earth energy that can keep you from, I don't know, digressing, or, moving in a direction that you don't need to be moving in.
Mm. I have the Hierophant and the Three of Pentacles for that day. And I would say this is about just remind yourself to take the high road.
Mm-hmm.
When you communicate with people,
Mm-hmm.
look to see what it is that they're thinking. Why do they think and feel this way? Instead of trying to assert your so-called truth or knowledge on them. Take the high road of curiosity and collaboration that will get you far in
Mm-hmm.
this. That's really high vibrational thinking and feeling for that day.
Yeah. December 28th, we have Mars in Sagittarius, square Neptune in Pisces. So now it's just Mars, square Neptune in Pisces. Again, more of the same. There isn't a clear path yet. There isn't a clear direction yet. Really, give it to January. It's only a few days away after that. Mars and Sagittarius can want to go really fast, and the square to Neptune in Pisces is going really fast nowhere. So you want to be mindful of where you're expending your energy.
Mm-hmm. Ace of Wands, that spark of inspiration, that creative energy.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's like a match when you strike a match.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is here.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly it. You will want to run with it.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a very good idea,
Mm-hmm.
except not to run with it.
Mm-hmm. December 29th, Venus leaves the sign of Scorpio and moves into the sign of Sagittarius. And it will remain in the sign of Sagittarius till January 23rd. I think Venus and Sagittarius will help liven up a little bit the very grounded, a little bit more toned down Capricorn energy. I think that it's Venus and Sagittarius is great energy to have, like, on a New Year's Eve party. That is party energy. So be mindful of that. I mean, I'm very biased. I have a natal Venus and Sagittarius. I love that energy. But keep in mind, every time we've mentioned either Mercury or the Sun in Sagittarius square Neptune in Pisces, Venus is going to do the same through the month of January. We're
Mhm.
going to talk about that, obviously, in January. So, why do you need to know that? Because as you keep moving forward with your plans, as your conversations start to get clearer, as you're patient, not jumping the gun, Venus and Sagittarius can bring this energy of, again, continue the energy of optimism, but it can be very difficult to stay on track. I think Capricorn energy will help it, but just remember that
Mhm.
connection to Neptune and Pisces will remain because of Venus and Sagittarius.
Well, I have the Wheel of Fortune in this,
Mm,
and if you notice, again, it's the dark and the light and the balancing. So this is like a theme for the month of sort of balancing these extremes of behavior, of thoughts, of feelings, of
mhm,
having, of doing, of being,
mhm,
what we expect versus what we should have, needs
right.
versus wants, the seen and the unseen, the truth and the lies,
Mhm,
whatever, all of that stuff. It's a very fortunate energy. The Wheel of Fortune means you get back up on top of the wheel again. Things are moving in a positive way. If you've navigated this whole month in this way, at this point, you're like, oh yeah, okay, this is great. It's like we're
mhm.
almost out of the, whatever, out of the murkiness. And you should be pretty skilled at balancing those energies at this point.
Yeah, right, right. And finally, on December 30th, Jupiter goes direct in Taurus. So Jupiter has been retrograde for a few months. And now, finally, a lot of the things that we have desired to come to fruition, remember the return on those investments, we're going to begin seeing them start happening as we move through January and into the rest the first half of 2024.
Mhm.
I think that Jupiter retrograde in Taurus was really about connecting to the value of things, connecting to what we value, to what our own values are, connecting to the why of why we wanted to make that amount of money, or connecting to our own sense of self-worth and value before moving forward with things.
Mhm.
um Jupiter in Taurus is such a manifesting tangible type of energy that I think we needed it to be retrograde for a little bit in order to get clear as to where we want to expand by putting our time, energy, and effort to.
Right. This is the second card that we have a duplicate of, and it's the Page of Cups.
Yeah.
And in this deck, I don't know if you can see up here, there's a little pig flying with this golden bowl, and somebody flying up, like when pigs fly kind of thing.
Right. Right.
There's this other energy here of two hands making a heart,
Hmm.
and his heart is all sort of broadcasting, and it's windy, and
Hmm.
the tides are changing. This is like a leveling up kind of energy.
Hmm.
When you get to the next level, you're a kid again. You're not mature. So you've matured. Oh, next level. Oh, I'm a beginner again. And it's okay. So I don't know everything, but I've just entered into this place. So
Hmm.
being curious, being open hearted, getting rid of the cynicism. It can be naive and it can be foolish, but it's more about the openness and the willing to learn with the wisdom somewhere at the back so that you can like discern a little
Right.
better.
Yep.
Yeah. And I pulled out another card just because it's New Year's Eve and we have no aspects on that day. And I thought, okay,
Yeah.
what would be a good, if is there a message for entering into the new year?
Yeah.
And the card I got is a place beyond time.
Ooh.
Place beyond time. And it says, do not get so caught up with the everyday drama of life. Close your eyes, focus on your breath, and allow it to carry you into a peaceful space inside your heart, an eternal place beyond time, filled only with love.
Aw, I
So
love
that is,
that.
yeah, so that is a good focus, for moving into the new year.
Yeah, what a beautiful card. What a
Ah,
pleasant surprise.
if I
Yeah.
could sing properly, I would make a nice angelic sound, but I fear it would come out like, croaking frogs, so I won't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us another year. Thank you for your follows, for your likes, for your messages, for your feedback. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Susheela, for being on this fun journey with me.
Yeah,
It's
my
fu-
pleasure.
it's always so fun to record these every month. And catch us next month, New Year 2024.
Crazy. It sounds like some futuristic Star Trek number, but
I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
have a good one, everybody.